Alright guys, so your next old school is going to have to deal with multiplying and factoring. These were pretty big concepts in Algebra 1, but I know it's been a while, so we think you might be rusty, so wanted to give you this video to help you out. The first three have to do with multiplying. Some of you may have called it FOIL. Some of you may have called it, what else would y'all have called it? How about double distribution? So let's give it a go at that one. Okay, so movie magic, now it's tiny and we have plenty of room to work. So the way that I like to do these, x plus 1, okay, is I take the first term and I distribute it to both. So 4x times x is 4x squared, and then 4x times a positive 1 is just plus 4x. Then what I do is I switch to the second term and I do the same thing. So negative 3 times x and negative 3 times positive 1. So once you have that, guys, the goal is just, it's called combining like terms. So we're going to recopy the 4x squared. Since both of those have an x, you get to put them together. So 4 minus 3 is a 1x. In fact, it should be a positive x. And then a minus 3 at the back. So that's how you do it. And that's what would go right here for my answer. Awesome. Now, these are going to be very similar, so you would just double distribute and fill them in. I want to spend more time on these. These are the tricky ones. So what this is, when you're told to factor, you're basically working backwards. So I'm giving you something that looks like this, and your goal is to make it look like it did in the beginning. So your answer is going to have some type of parentheses with some stuff in it. So let's figure out how to get that stuff. All right. I'm going to show you a method called factoring by grouping because it's the easiest way. Some of you might have called it like SFFP. Some of you might have done some kind of funky square thingy or grid thingy. I'm just going to do straight up factoring by grouping, which just means you bring down your first term and you bring down your last term. Now, this term in the middle is about to get split into two numbers. And the way you decide on those two numbers is you're looking for two numbers that add to get the middle, but multiply to get what's in the back. So, how do I do that? Well, let's see. Let me start with what multiplies to 24. How about we could do 2 and 12, we could do 6 and 4. Now, if I do 6 times 4, then I'd have to use a negative 6 and a negative 4, which would get me a negative 10, but it would not get me a negative 24 at the back. So that's why these are kind of tricky. So I actually know that instead it's going to be a positive 2x and a negative 12x that are going to turn that into the correct number. Now with factoring by grouping, you just group these together, and then you group the second two together, and you factor out of each piece separately. So from the first parenthesis, I can take out an x, and from the second parenthesis, it looks like I can factor out a negative 12. So when I take an x out of these, let's see, x squared divided by x plus what's 2x divided by x? Well, that's just a 2. Now if I take a negative 12 out of these, that'll become just an x, and then what's negative 24 divided by negative 12? Well, that's a plus 2. Now, here's how I know I've done it right. These match. That's awesome. Whatever matches comes out to the front. Whatever's left in the front of each parenthesis becomes your second parenthesis. So this will be x plus 2, x minus 12. That is factoring by grouping. Okay, now it's a little trickier if there's a number in the front. I actually have another video out there that's called factoring. So if you want to search Mink factoring, you will get the correct video that'll go into something like number 6 or come into tutorials and you can get help that way. But let's look at number 5. Number 5 is a special kind of factoring. It's called a difference of squares. These are actually, I think, the easiest ones out there, okay? Here's the format, okay? Anytime you see something minus something, okay, but you notice that whatever these somethings are have a really pretty square root. So if you notice that happening, this is going to fall into a pattern where you're going to take the square root of this one and put it here, and the square root of that, and they're going to go in the front, you're going to have 1 plus, 1 minus, and then the square root of that is going to go in the back of each of these. Now, I realize this looks just like a hashtag nightmare, so let's do this problem and that may help more. 100 y squared minus 9. Okay, so how does this work? Well, I see the minus, yay, and I notice that these have a square root. So I'm automatically going to just put my parentheses up, put 1 with a plus, 1 with a minus. What is the square root of 100 y squared? Well, the square root of that, guys, is just 10y. So there's going to be a 10y in the front of both. And what's the square root of 9? 3. There's going to be a 3 in the back of both. And you are done. These are the quickest and easiest kind to do as long as you recognize what's happening here and the fact that you can split it up that quickly. So that's just a preview of your old school. If you need more help than this video or the other video I mentioned called factoring, then please come in and see us, and we look forward to really good scores this 6 weeks. Thank you, guys.